Hello, everybody.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome to 80s Mayhem with Chudster and Vlad. And this is actually something that we're going to bring from the vaults of our childhood that we know because it's in the movies now. The Masters of the Universe.
I have the power.
That's right.
It's kind of like an 80s version of I'm the king of the world.
Yeah, it is. It is. It totally is. But it's got a long, illustrious history, and I got some yays and nays, but overall I liked it.
So you saw the movie, and tell us a little about the movie, Joe.
Well,
There you go. Take it.
it essentially brings back what everybody likes visually, graphically. If you remember all the characters, they're there. And I think that it's entertaining. It's 2.5 hours long, but yet is very
What?
entertaining. Yeah,
Oh
it is.
my God.
It is. I swear to God, it's 2.5.
That's a pretty long movie.
But entertaining though. It is pretty entertaining because it's not pretty much like they use filler. I do have criticisms about it.
All right. So first tell us like the good things and your criticisms of the movie.
Well, the good thing about the movie was I think it was a very dynamic cast. And I will say up front that basically Jared Leto really steals the show as Skeletor. He really does.
Great choice for Skeletor. Just great choice in general. He's great.
He was. I mean, just a quick segue. I mean, with the TV show, the animated series, they had a problem because most of the fan mail they would get from kids would always show more favor towards Skeletor. A lot of kids like Skeletor.
Wasn't that the same with Darth Vader?
Pretty much, right? That was the
kids
action
loved
figure
him.
that
He was
sold.
the good guy.
Exactly. But there's a tie-in with that with franchising too. But overall, the film does deliver in terms of its appearance. Technically, as a film, it really worked for me. I really liked even the lead. I believe that was Nicholas Galatzine, I believe his name was, who plays a very believable character who goes through an arc and struggles and is self-conflicted in a way that he has to prove himself and he learns the true source of power. And the thing that I liked about the narrative of the movie was where you get power and goodness and why it's important if you are good to be only able to use power when you need to, not when you don't have to. And I also thought, I think it was Calma Mendez, I believe she played Tila, I believe. And she was really very convincing as that one mentor who was also an equal to Prince Adam, but yet always outmatching him in terms of decor, being more cultured, because there's a lot of spoilers that we're going to be talking about. So in the comment section and in the subtitles, you'll see that there's a bit of a warning that before we go further, don't watch this video if you want to see the movie because there are a lot of spoilers. But there's also a lot of insight, and we'll also go into the origins of the characters and the franchise really quick and make a tie-in to why basically toys matter. You know, because they actually influence us, but how that actually matters with this franchise more than you realize. Now, the good thing about the film was the special effects, the CGI. It didn't really overwhelm the story, even though motion capture really did play a very important part with Jared Leto. Skeletor was essentially as evil as ever. I really have to say.
Was he recognizable as Jared Leto? Like, can you see that it was him, or was this the makeup just totally took his face over and you couldn't tell who it was?
No, not like with Frank Langella when he played him in the original movie with the makeup they used. This was motion capture, so you couldn't tell it was him. That was an interesting point, but he came out in terms of his voice and the way he acted. I think that another really good thing about the movie was that, you know, every single character you do like kind of a who's who, and it brings them all there. Mecha-neck, Beastman, also Fisto, Ram Man, Moss Man. Some who were toys that never made it to the animated series. Some that basically were in the animated series that you'll never forget.
Well, you remember, like in the Star Wars movies, you would have like an extra, you know, like a walk-on of just some character you'd see for 2 seconds, and that character would be a toy related to the movie that they would sell as a marketing thing.
And immortalized.
Yeah,
Even that,
of course.
even if it wasn't a main character, it would be immortalized in that respect. And I think that that's really what came out about this movie, too, I think. The fanfare is there. The fun is there. It's just a fun film. It has a very, very fun feel. Brian May does the soundtrack to this.
Brian May of Queen.
So another thing about it too, with the way the optics are, in certain ways, because of the way he does it, it's almost like an homage to Flash Gordon. The feel.
So you can hear like his signature guitar sounds.
Yep.
In the movie.
Yeah, you do. You do. And that was one thing that really made it very enjoyable. There's a lot of pros and cons behind that, which I will get into later on. But I mean, that was another thing that I really, really liked. Everything right down to Cringer and to Battle Cat. The only difference
Speaking
is...
of Cringer and the Battle Cat, I got a surprise for you.
Please,
this is my only piece of Masters of the Universe that survived my childhood.
I gotta see it, man.
Battle Cat.
Oh, man, that is an awesome Battle Cat.
Okay, as you notice, Battle Cat's armor did not survive my childhood. I have no idea where the armor is. So technically, the only thing I really remember is that Cringer became the mighty Battle Cat. So he was just kind of like a scared kitty cat. And then he had the power or whatever, and then he became Battle Cat with the armor. So this is Battle Cat without the armor, but he's still pretty badass, if you can see.
He is. He is.
I like that.
Is in good condition. You could probably get the parts on eBay if you want to restore it back. They go for a lot of money.
That's a great idea. I didn't think of that.
You go on eBay and you look for, like, they'll have partial remains or maybe partial or parts from the action figures. I noticed that they usually have that, and they can go for pretty cheap because it's not the whole thing.
Right. Or maybe just the cat with the armor. You never know if it's $5 or $10.
Right.
And that's a good idea. I should do that.
Because here's a little bit of a back history with Mattel. They kind of missed the boat with Star Wars. You might be aware of that. Kenner was the company that got the green light from George Lucas, because nobody ever thought that Star Wars was going to go anywhere. Mattel was approached first, and they gave a flat no. And because of that, when they saw what happened with Star Wars, they were like, uh-oh, we made a big mistake. So they really made a lot of bank and really made up for it with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It was really based on Conan the Barbarian.
I was about to ask you that. Like, I thought, from what I've heard, is that He-Man was based on Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of put a blonde wig on him and he's He-Man. Is that true?
Pretty much. Pretty much. That was the idea. And what they did was they brought him into a world, knowing the popularity of Star Wars, even though it was set in some type of medieval type of universe, it was still another universe. So it really does extend, or at least it's definitely influenced by Star Wars, because it combines wizardry with sorcery. And I thought visually, optically, it was very, very different still, and it really stood out to me. Because instead of knights, you had robot knights in some of the episodes. And
I think I was a big fan as a kid, but I guess I don't remember much of Masters of the Universe. He-Man, Battle Cat, and was there a guy named Man of War?
Man of Arms.
His best friend?
Man of Arms.
Man of Arms.
Man of Arms. And actually, to tie into the movie, as a matter of fact, he was played by, basically, Idris Elba. Played Duncan.
He's great.
Yeah. And he was awesome in this movie. He was really, really good in this movie. I have to say, as Man of Arms, I think he was that mentor, and essentially he helped Adam when he was much younger, because King Randor was very, very tough on him, because he knew that because Prince Adam was who he was, things would be really, really tough on him. But I think that Man of Arms in this movie is that surrogate type of father figure that makes him understand the reasons why. Now, the dilemma in the story in the movie is that to hide him from Skeletor, the sorceress zaps him into another dimension, and that's how he comes back to Earth. Just like back in 1987 with Dolph Lundgren, he came back to this Earth. Only the difference was he basically had to hide. They had to hide him and the Power Sword from Skeletor, because he takes over Eternia. And when he...
What's his name in the movie? Like his alter ego, his regular guy persona. What's his name?
You know him as Adam, his first name when he's on Earth. But he's Prince Adam, essentially. They didn't really go into like his last name. I can only think King Randor, so I guess it would be Adam Randor. if
Okay.
it's that. But you know, the Queen basically holds steadfast because his father gets killed in a conflict between He-Man and Skeletor later on. And he has to carry on, and that's when he has to go through and overcome a bigger dilemma with more on his shoulders. And in doing that, that's when he finds out at the end that if he used he basically is able to overcome Skeletor based on his moral judgment, not by using the full extent of his power. Even though at the end he kicks the crud out of Skeletor. I was like, holy, like, I couldn't believe it. But he does. He really does him in. And still, at the end, Skeletor, they do hint that maybe there's going to be a sequel. And that's where I can probably get into where this film lacks. One of the things I did not like about the movie.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say first is that, so is he playing kind of like he's the chosen one, you know, kind of thing like Aquaman was, like, you know, I'm not the guy, you know, I'm just a guy, I'm no hero. Is it kind of like that?
No, as a matter of fact, he wants to find that. He needs to try and recap that when he's on
It
Earth.
almost sounds like Thor, like Chris Hemsworth is Thor, where you've got where he loses his powers and he's cast into like planet Earth, and then he's got like the hammer, and he can't, because he doesn't have his powers anymore, he can't take the hammer out. Isn't that similar with this and the He-Man and the sword?
Right, when he has to get the sword. He finds the sword
like,
at a comic book store.
And it's like, it's mine. Oh, don't worry, it's my sword.
And he's trying to take it out of this big, huge, hulking statue. And that's the other thing, the humor. Which, when he's on Earth, the humor works. But when he goes back to Eternia, it obstructs the flow of the movie and it doesn't work. And I actually felt that way because there were so many things that they were trying to do. And in short, I think that the studio pressured the production to insert all of this because they want to upgrade the franchise. And in doing so, it just came out as pretentious and essentially just forced in a lot of ways. And that's where I actually will get into one of the things where it fails, but how I think we're still going to see more movies, and you're going to find this interesting. Essentially, you know, as he goes through the story, I think with Brian May, with the kind of license they gave him, because as you know, when you do the soundtrack, it actually gives an unusual type of license and reach into the distribution of a film that normally cast members or other people in the production usually don't get. So one of the things I really didn't like was that they didn't have enough faith in this movie, the executives, the studio executives.
You mean like the marketing of the movie?
Yeah, they didn't. And also in the way the film was. And just in making of the movie, they wanted to insert a whole lot of things because they felt that with the way they were doing it, it wouldn't really be able to stand on its own. So they, rather than really draw from the strength of the franchise, they would use crude humor throughout the movie. And they would also insert different things because of who was associated with it. Here's the case. Brian May did the soundtrack to the movie. So there's a point in the film when He-Man basically has established himself and he's held captive with the Queen and Teela and Man of Arms and everybody else and Battle Cat. And when they break free and they're about to take on Skeletor's forces, it's slow motion, they break free, and I'm like, yeah, here's the crescendo, here it comes, and who do we hear? What theme do we hear? Highlander. I swear.
Queen did the music for that.
Yeah.
Did they? Yeah.
But this is He-Man. This isn't Highlander. It took me out of the movie, that moment. I was thinking that when they came out, I thought I was going to hear dun, 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 dun. No, instead you hear Princes of the Universe.
Buddy, you're a boy, Mick. But you know, a lot of composers just use their same themes.
They do. But
they just repeat themselves a lot.
But I think with this, because it wasn't like a classical orchestra, because it was based on, it was more contemporary. When you hear, here we are, you're thinking of the movie Highlander. And I get it. Born to be Kings, we're the Princes of the Universe. So,
but most of the kids watching this show, Joe, this movie, Joe, they're not going to remember that movie, Highlander.
Exactly.
I don't think.
Which
I mean, Highlander came out in 1986, so that was 40 years ago.
Right. And that's why when it depends on the age of the audience. With younger
the
audiences,
kids won't know. They won't remember that movie with Christoph Lambert.
Right. But if you remember Highlander and you grew up and you're a fan of the franchise, I could see how, for me anyway, it just threw me off, I think. But overall, though, it was as entertaining as it was. That was the one thing. And sometimes there's a whole crude thing about the humor where you're Fisto because you fist people.
That is a terrible name, by the way.
Well, you find out why. They actually use it as a joke, like as a running gag.
Yeah, but when you said it, I was like, what did you just say? Fisto?
Well, that's how they say it in the movie. That's the thing.
Like,
Ram Man. He uses his head.
Ram? Did you just say Ram Man? Fisto Ram Man. Is this a porno movie or what's going on here?
Well, that's the thing.
I honestly don't. This is new to me. I don't know these things. I'm like, what?
Well, that was the thing. It was like a running gag. And I was saying to myself, why did they have to go with that? They could have done...
I'm assuming this is not a rated R movie.
It's
right?
not.
It's like PG-13. Yeah. Wow.
Or I think it's
Fisto
like...
and Ram Man. Okay.
And so I was thinking to myself, look, more power to you, whatever floats your boat. But at the same time, this is like a movie about a... This is a movie
what was your favorite character? Fisto.
Ram Man.
Ram Man.
Yeah, but the other thing is, too, I think the money shot. And this is an interesting thing.
Money shot. See? You keep going on with it. Fisto, Ram Man, money shots.
Well, this one actually came at the end with Orko. Orko actually comes at the end. And if you remember with the animated show from Filmation back in the 80s, at the end of every episode, there would be a main character that would demonstrate the moral of the story. They would narrate that, and that's how it would end. And that's what Orko does at the end of this movie. And I thought that was really awesome. I saw this with my friend at work, Brian Swamy Wilson. An excellent artist. He's one of our followers. And he wrote something about it, too, when he actually saw it. And we took pictures. And that was a fun part of seeing the movie, too, was the merchandise, okay? And essentially, Orko comes in at the end. And this is the reason why it's kind of a dichotomy in terms of its success. Now, we've spoken before about Prime and Amazon, okay? Now, this is an Amazon movie. It's a Prime movie.
Right.
So, this is the interesting hybrid of this movie, okay? It's not making its budget, right? And like,
what is the budget? It looks like an expensive movie.
I think it was like about $200 million, actually, for the budget. As a matter of fact, I have it here. It was about $170 million to about $200
Your subscription's going up.
Yeah, exactly.
To pay off for this movie.
And it was like, so far it made like about $86 million. And here's the thing. They probably expect just that. If not the subscription, they probably know they'll make more off the movie when it goes to Prime. And people stream it on Prime.
Right.
Kind of like how a lot of films would make a lot of money when they were released on home video. Like when The Thing opened in theaters, as opposed to when it was released on VHS, home video, that's when it made a lot of money.
A lot of those movies have a second life on video and now digital.
And that's what I think is going to happen with this. I think that's why it probably has like a little bit of a wide berth. Because it's not a movie in a sense. Technically, it's a very good movie. It just looks great. It sounds great. You don't even know it's 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours. It goes by pretty fast. But it also, is something that probably is an extension of the franchise. It's the brand. And that's where they're looking. That's the long game that I think Prime is looking at. I think they're looking at the brand. And I think it's one of those things that they're going to basically do in time. Probably short series. They're probably going to release. The next sequel will probably be directly to Prime.
Or maybe they'll do a TV show on Prime.
Possibly. A series that... And I think it would have done better that way. If they would have done a series in several parts, probably they might as well have done that. I think that because it's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, the film is an extension of their agenda as to what they want to do in the future with Prime. That's what I think. So that's why they're
Okay.
probably not really worried about that as much. And that's why I just think overall it was just a good time. It's a pretty interesting movie. Maybe I just noticed things that I was probably a little bit more, because I can't really differentiate because of the franchise, Highlander versus He-Man. But when I think about it, though, I would still get it on home video. I probably would.
And don't you have the DVDs or Blu-rays?
Yes.
That you can show us?
This is my merch, basically.
Show and tell.
Show and tell. This is the whole thing. This is the first series. Basically, I have all 4 sets of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This is basically the first part. This is basically Season 1, Volume 1. Okay? Essentially, there are 4 volumes. Essentially, all 4. Season 1, Volume 1. Season 1, Volume 2. Then Season 2, Volume 1. Season 2, Volume 2. There were maybe, because it would be every day. It was a series that was produced by Filmation, which was in competition with Hanna-Barbera, and they pretty much kept ahead of each other. And one of the things about Filmation with this particular series, and I had a book on Filmation that went into it. I read a whole book on them, that they would rotoscope and combine that with animation frames in a way that Hanna-Barbera wouldn't. So it kind of gave the feel of being realistic. So a lot of the scenes with Battle Cat, let's say, running into the shot, they would actually take an actual shot of a tiger running into the camera. And they would just reuse that when they did Tarzan back in the 70s. Or even let's say Star Trek. They produced that series back in the 70s, which won an Emmy. That was Filmation. Journey to the Center of the Earth. And then there was another one. It was Fantastic Voyage, based on the Isaac Asimov and the famous film of Raquel Welch. But long story short, He-Man was Lou Scheimer's claim to fame because it was very successful.
Who is Lou Scheimer?
He produced and was the head producer and executive of Filmation. And he was the one that greenlit and was behind all the episodes of all the shows they did. And he had a pretty good run for almost 30, 40 years. The whole studio, actually. But He-Man and Masters of the Universe morphed into She-Ra. Okay. Incidentally, in the movie,
I remember that, yeah.
They actually hint at the sequel that She-Ra will be in the continuation of the series.
Was Tanya Roberts She-Ra?
I believe, I'm not too sure. I could probably find it out now.
She was in Beastmaster and A View to a Kill, but was she She-Ra?
You just see her from behind with the sword and you know it's her. I do know that I remember the series that came out after He-Man back in the 80s. That was Filmation as well. That was their last animated series, from what I understand, until they folded. And then they got swallowed up by a conglomerate. But a lot of things that, just in case anybody's wondering, Masters of the Universe was a toy franchise originally. DC Comics started to publish individual stories when they got the license to do it, and DC Comics Presents, which was in the late 70s and the early 80s. And then sometimes they would insert stories to promote it before they released it in individual issues of Batman and Superman. Like this essentially has a short story of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, essentially. And you can see it here. And you see how rough it all was. And this is the open page, and you probably are looking at scanned images that I'm probably showing while I'm actually opening this. But both Batman, Superman, a lot of other issues, they would showcase or insert certain short stories from the series to promote it. And because the popularity began to build, and because it sold, the franchise began to sold overall, that's when they decided to make an animated series, and they contacted Filmation that took it. And that's what everybody remembers. I think anybody remembering this movie is going to basically, or anybody that sees this movie, will probably always reference the animated series, and they'll always be trying to look for certain toys that they had. Some that they had, some that appear, some that don't. I mean, there was so much with that franchise. There were so many different toys that they had. Stinkor, who never really appeared. Stinkor. It was Skunk. He was a skunk man. I kid you
not. So you
had
like what? Fisto. What was the other one? Fisto. What was the other one? The other
Ram Man.
Porn name.
Ram
Fisto,
Man.
Ram Man, and Stinko.
Yeah.
These are terrible names.
I know. Well,
these names, these characters in the wrong movie.
Moss Man. You know, who is in the movie actually, and he dies. That was the thing. I was kind of like,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, exactly. Spoiler alert. But overall, that's pretty much my take on it. I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun, but it also reflected to me a certain avenue that certain films that may not really make their budget could go. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I have my pros and my cons about it. But overall, I think I really enjoyed He-Man. And anybody that, if you're a serious film buff that's really a purist, then wait for it to come on Prime and you can probably stream it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. And I think that, it's worth seeing. You wouldn't really waste your money because it's just entertaining. It is entertaining.
Wait for Prime.
Pretty much.
So I have a two-part question for you.
Sure.
How does this 2026 version compare with the 1987 version? And who, in your opinion, Joe, is the best He-Man? Dolph Lundgren or this guy?
I like Nicholas Galitzine, but I will put it to you this way. Spoiler alert, Dolph Lundgren makes a cameo in this movie.
Oh, gosh.
I swear to God.
I didn't think to ask that, but that would make sense. Well, what is he like? He-Man's father? He-Man's step-uncle-in-law?
This is when he's at his lowest, when he's
Does he come in Drago?
Right, imagine. Well, this is when He-Man is at his worst. He's at a gym, and essentially...
He's at the gym?
And, he's just really, at one point, he makes his entry, Dolph Lundgren, as a guy in a gym. He says, "You're taking my spot." He's like, "Oh." And then he basically looks...
"You take my spot, I must break you."
No accent. But, he does talk to him, and he winds up giving him words of encouragement in terms of his identity and what to do. So, I think
if Skeletor dies, he dies.
Yeah, right? Imagine. Well, I don't know if it goes that far.
He didn't do it as Drago, is what you're saying.
No, he didn't do it as Drago. He just basically was a guy in a gym who basically had been there. And I think in this movie, he kind of plays it off that, yeah, I did this thing too. This is what you got to basically watch out for. But you'll be fine. You'll be good.
The spoilers are coming out to me. I don't know about Fisto and Dolph Lundgren showing up.
Well, it moves the movie.
I didn't plan on seeing it anyway, so it's okay. It's like, shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm going to be like, when's Dolph Lundgren showing up in the movie?
Well, there's your answer. I thought that this actor really carried the character. He did. He was really very good. I thought he establishes an arc. He establishes himself. He understands the meaning behind his power, right down to Sorceress when she's Zohar, the Falcon. Because that's a sign to him that basically the power is for him to wield, but there's great responsibility behind it. And that's where at the end, it really felt like the cartoon. It felt like a glorified version of the cartoon that you really don't mind. So,
do you liked it better than the original 87 movie then?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say because I didn't really have, at that point, I wasn't really, because that film was kind of like a letdown to me because it was so different.
Well, that was a canon movie, right?
Yeah, and it was very, very different from the franchise.
It was probably more campy than, say, this movie.
Yeah. And this movie still was campy, but not as much as the film in 87, I think.
Well, most of the canon films are campy.
Yeah. They basically would go on uncharted territory and just throw the spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks. But overall, though, I did think that this was actually a pretty good movie overall. And next to that, there are many people who remember the original film, and, they compare that to this, and they might even like it a little bit better. There are a lot of people that felt there was a great disappointment, but they remember it because it's a product of the 80s. I think the difference between the two is that this basically has a wide berth and is probably going to gain another life through Prime because it's much more dynamic in Prime.
And better production value as well.
Yeah. That's much different than canon. So they can facilitate all kinds of things. That's why they're probably not as worried about the box office growth. I think they have something else in mind, and I think they see the long draw and the value of the franchise, the brand. And this just seems to be an extension of the brand. It's part of the reason why I wasn't really as critical, I think. And, I love the Masters of the Universe. It's really cool, I guess, now, finally, it had a pretty good vehicle, a pretty good wide berth, It's taken on many different forms. Even Marvel Comics came out with their variation in the late 80s of Masters of the Universe. There was another animated show from another studio that's probably just as lengthy as the one that I have. The cool thing about this DVD series was, on the other side of it, which is really, really cool, is the whole cell of Castle Greyskull and Snake Mountain, which they get down pat. That's the other thing that they really get right. Snake Mountain is in the movie. That's Skeletor's lair. And you see it. It really looks awesome. Castle Greyskull looks like Castle Greyskull. Man-at-Arms, they all look like the characters that they were. And they gave it a new kind of life, I think. We're just going to have to see where that goes. Will He-Man have the power of mass marketing in this digital age where everybody can easily have the power on these things with no problem at all? We'll see how this franchise competes with this
Check
new
it out
digital
on
age.
Prime next week.
Yes. We'll see about that. Because this is a product from the 80s that just doesn't seem to die. So it does have the power. And Skeletor might be back. We never know. He was my favorite character. And I thought that this was overall, it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. Leave your comments in the comment sections. Do you agree? Do you think that He-Man will have the power? Like and subscribe if you could. I really enjoyed it, and I loved sharing it with you all through the 80s.
Yes, and also check out our episode on that fantastic Focus Features movie, Obsession.
Yes, if you
haven't on the channel.
Because that definitely is raking in the money. I can tell you that. And that was really a pleasure to talk about. And also, I just uploaded a video of my recent experience with our union, with our art show. And that's all basically on our channel, which is growing. It's expanding.
Yes.
If anything...
And the art show had some of the He-Man Masters of the Universe artwork that we can show here.
Until then, folks, be well. We will be your guide through the 80s as more tends to surface. Even with things
Thanks for subscribing, everybody.
Thank you. Be well.